Oh, I'll try this. Be like a rock star. You guys will hear me. So I'll start off by basically giving you a real quick overview of how VR is used in property. I know we're a little bit different than the other disciplines in the business school. Every single building starts out as an abstraction. So like this building here would have been just a set of plans. Now in some aspects of, say, a new build, like a downtown, a new apartment building, to get finance, you need to pre-sale a decent amount of apartments. And one way of differentiating your building competing against others is to maybe put together a VR package so people can virtually see and experience what the apartment might look like and what kind of views they might have out the windows. So that tends to be where VR is at the moment, but my talk, of course, is how to use it in teaching. So take one sidestep and we'll talk about just the technology a little bit. So there's all kinds of different ways to experience VR. Now, Olga's walking around now and she's passing out what's called a Google Cardboard. And that's the main thing that I'll be talking about. Now, you can't keep this, unfortunately. It's a little bit of show and tell to have a bit of a play and see what it looks like. But I'm going to have to take them back because they're for the students. So depending on the headset, there's all kinds of really fancy pants ones. And then there's the simple pizza box cardboard like that with some lenses in them. So depending on what you're using, whether you're using the fancy ones that have the viewer inside and high-powered kit, or your own phone, which is the thing that I use with my students, there are some bottlenecks. So one thing that's important to understand is, say, on the camera side, you'll have the simple consumer level things, and you get up to about a 4K resolution. Okay, it's still quite pixelated because you're taking that resolution, you're spraying it around a 360-degree spherical image, really. So it ends up being not that great. You're not going to be fooled that you're in real reality. You'll know that you're in VR. But you move all the way down to the super level. So these are a few $100, these are a few $1,000, and these are tens of thousands of dollars. If you've ever seen the kind of street view cameras walking around or driving around, you'll see something like that on top. That's the type of kit that they use for the Google Street View. If you want 20/20 vision to actually fool yourself that you're in virtual reality, you really need to be down at this level. But these are exponentially different. The size of the data files are massively different as you go up in resolution. So essentially what VR is you have, this is just showing kind of like a panorama, but really it's a sphere. So it's an equal rectangular image that's all stitched together. You'll see this only has two lenses, one on each side. This has more, this has even more. So the more the better, less the image is more clear, and it all has to be stitched together, and you stitch together into a sphere, and then you use some kind of headset or viewer to see the world around you. So what we did last year is we launched a teaching initiative to use VR in teaching. It all started, you could blame this guy named Scott. Okay, so Scott came in and did a little bit of a show and tell using VR with the dean, and the dean got all excited and said, boy, who could use VR? Well, property folks, since we deal with the built environment. So our HOD, Deborah, there was basically put her arm around her back and said, please use VR and figure out how to use it in your classes. So the three of us there went and visited Scott and his PhD student in the lab that's across the street in the relatively new science building, and they have a visualization facility there. So, to be honest, when I first got introduced to this, I was like, okay, this is going to be one of those cute technologies that I'll put some backpack on with some gear, the students be giggling to see me do something up on the stage. Maybe I'll get one guinea pig up there to do it with me, and then I'll be basically it. So that's kind of where my mindset. I was very skeptical. I didn't think it would be something that I would actually use, to be honest. And then when I was talking to Nick, towards the end, he pulled out this thing that I thought was really, really cool. It was kind of like the little pizza boxes you guys have. And it was all branded like that. And he took his phone, put it in, and I did a little AA, like the driving test. And they have a little VR thing where somebody can kind of get an experience of what it might be like to take a practical driving test. And I thought, now that's really cool. Because if I could get something, he said they'd be worth about $5 a pop. And we actually got hundreds of these things, and we got them down to about $3 a pop. And when you get down to that price point, you could actually put them into the hands of students, and they could do something directly with them. So that's kind of where I've moved. So I got excited, put together this proposal. There's only a few pages of it. Ran it by Jane, and she said, oh, cool, here's some money. and go out and buy some stuff. So we went and bought some stuff. So knowing that I wanted to put it in the hands of students, I really was limited to using the pizza boxes. Some people call them a gateway drug. So to just get into VR initially, and Google's developed this. They no longer really develop it, as I understand, because they've started making more of this. So that's kind of, they're clever people. So they try to get their gateway drug to get you into the more expensive things that they actually sell now in terms of headsets. So just briefly, what is this pizza box? So it literally is just a form of cardboard, and they're pretty much all manufactured in China. That's where the ones that are in front of you come from. So they're mass produced, they're all folded up. They have some pretty cool features like this little button. Yeah, so that's like a little, you press the button here, but then this simulates a finger tap on the screen. Now the stuff that we use, we don't actually use that function, but it could be something that you could have a degree of interactivity with the student or the user of the VR. This is actually a slide where I try to tell the students, because I get them to actually put it and give it a go. There is a little rubber band, and it's all based on friction, but you have a really thin phone. Do not sit there and do that, because your phone will jettison out and bust on the floor. So I just told them, I'm not taking any responsibility for somebody doing something wacky with their headsets. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview of how I produce my VR content. So here's the kind of kit. There's the camera itself. I use a GoPro Fusion, which is a little bit between the professional and the consumer, okay, a little bit pricier. It's got 2 lenses on either side. I also use a mic. I'll explain how that's important. That's important whenever you do any video at all. If you're using some kind of little camera like that or anything, or any camera, don't depend on the audio pickup of the camera. You have to have very good audio. You're wasting your time if you don't capture good audio. As far as a tripod, I actually use a mic stand, because in VR, if you have a cameraman, he's sitting there holding it, well, your VR is going to have his face blown up if you turn around in VR all the time. So you can't do that. You also can't have a mic boom, because you'll see the mic boom. You'll see everything. So one advantage of this is it's got a very tiny footprint. So I could put that there, take a picture of the space, and in VR, if I look down, I'll see a little kind of blurred out black spot at the bottom. So it works out really well. So what happens is, here's your camera, and in this example, only 2 lenses. It simply takes 2 fisheye 180-degree images. And along that edge there, it stitches it together. Okay? Some cameras will stitch it in the fly. This one, you need to use its own software, and it will stitch the 2 images together. Those 2 images will then create this equirectangular image. And that specific type of image is what you would use, either if it's video or whether it's a static image like that one. You'd feed that into other software to actually build your VR content. So here's the bit about audio. So that's me up on the roof. One thing that led me to actually start doing this and spending my time is I used to always bring my students up in groups of about 15 up to the roof, down to the bowels of the building, because I teach construction. And that was all great until they decided that property services was really not going to be in-house anymore. It's going to be contracted, and they changed the life safety regulations, and it's basically impossible for me to do that. It's not practical anymore. So the guy who has been doing it with me for years, he was about to retire, and he went up, and that's actually his shadow right there, one last time, and we took this video. And that's the video that for the foreseeable future that we're going to be using. So anyway, here's me using the mic. If you didn't use the mic, you wouldn't be able to hear me. So the mic's picking me up really good, and then in a separate software, Adobe Premiere, I'm using the sound from the mic to overlay with the video, and it comes out with a good product. As far as software, it's early days. There's not a lot of good software out there to use. The software I use is 3D Vista Virtual Tour. It's designed for property, which is kind of cool. But it's not designed for teaching or anything like that, so you're kind of having to shoehorn things. It does work okay. One good thing about it is it allows you to publish directly to the web. So it comes with a little JavaScript player, so you have your videos, your panoramic static images. and you put them together into a total package, and then you could publish them, put them here on the local server, and that becomes critical if you're going to do videos, because videos, if you try to serve this remotely, forget it. It's just too big of files, and it's not going to really play well. So you have to really serve them from the school. So I say here, let's have a play. Probably don't have enough time to really have a proper play, but I'll just show you kind of some of the things that we've done in terms of actual teaching. The top one is a colleague of mine. He teaches a course called Building Surveying. And what he's done is he has just a room. It's a little 520. You guys have probably spent a little bit of time in 520. And he went in there, and he has a before and an after. So he kind of, this is just, just paper with some drawings on it. He kind of screwed up. He pulled a light bulb out. Don't tell anybody. He pulled that out, pulled something off the wall. He kind of damaged it. And it's kind of like in building surveying, it's like when you go rent a car. First thing you do is you look around and say, oh, that ding, that scratch. So if you rent a lease space like this room here, you're going to want to do a survey to make sure that was a damaged bit or that is not your fault when you hand it over back to the owner years later. Same kind of principle. So he does this for his students. His students become familiar with the top one, and then on test day or in-class assessment, they're given that one to kind of go through and say, okay, here's this defect, here's that, and lay it all out. As far as myself, I've already kind of explained. I used to do tours of this building. Now they're virtual tours. So I go up to the roof, go down into the bowels. Some of these spaces are really noisy. When I used to give these in person, by the time I got to group 6, I couldn't talk. I was just kind of trying to say something to the students, and it was noise. They couldn't hear me. So now they could hear everything I say, and it all works out well. One thing that was funny here is I took the virtual head. It's my daughter's ski helmet, and I put a little GoPro thingamajiggy on it, and I severed the head of the student. So I lifted it off Helena, who was my human tripod, and then I shoved it into one of these things. So you could do things that you can't do in a real tour. So I actually shoved the head inside there, so you kind of see the innards of this big piece of equipment there. So you can have some fun with it. There's no link here, but I figured I'd give it to Nabil. There is a video there of a reclad project if you guys want to see yet another example of a tour. So the last thing, how much time do I have left? 5 minutes. 5 minutes, okay. I can relax. All right, so if you have a go on this, and if you have an iPhone, they've done a security change recently where the gyroscope, you need to have a gyroscope functioning. I think if you use Safari on an iPhone, it has to go to settings anyway. They've not made my life easy. So you might come across where it's not working for you. If we have time at some stage, I could come around and maybe help you get through that. But if it does work for you, what's going to happen is you go to that link, you click this little button there, that'll put you in stereoscopic. And what it'll do is it'll give you 2 almost identical images, slightly offset, and that is what you put. You put your phone into your viewer, close it on up, look through, and it will give you a 3D kind of feel inside that space. There'll be a little tiny white dot, that's your focal point, and then you could use that dot to look around and go onto icons that will take you to the next space, open up a video, open up an image, do other kind of things, and allow you to interact with the 3D environment. So you guys want to have a little go? I don't know who has there's little boxes. Okay. So one thing that you'll see in here is if you open it up, most of them should have a strap. It actually took us, it was a big investment, that little rubber thing around the nose. That cost probably 20% of the entire budget on this whole project. Because if you don't have that rubber thing and you put that with a strap, it will literally dig into your nose. So if yours doesn't, I think one of them, the strap fell off. So just be careful if you put that on there. But the only way to have an immersive experience, you could experience all of this kind of stuff just on a tablet or a PC or your phone without one of these things. But if you want to feel like you're in the space, you open this up just like that, put the strap on, put in your phone, go to the website, I'll go back. So there's those images, so you can pick one of those if you'd like. And if everything's working out, you'll get a stereoscopic image show up on your screen, plop it into your little cardboard pizza box, and then put it on and see how it feels. One good thing about the panoramas, which is just an image, just a one shot, is because of the way it works, you look around, it's almost like a video. You'll feel like it's almost like a video. You don't actually need a video to have that same feeling with VR. You could have a simple static image, and as the viewer is looking around, it feels like you're actually in motion in the space, but it's actually a static image they're looking at. All right. You want to go to questions?
You're done.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.